My name is Anthony. My name is Anthony Marchetta. I have written lots of things. Ben's also written lots of things. He's the co-host, and Bokerah is our guest. She wrote Saturn. Did I nail it? Was it A plus? Welcome to the Sunday Superversive Livestream, starring your hosts Anthony Marchetta, Benjamin Wheeler, who apparently cannot be heard on stream,
I fixed it.
and our special guest, Bokerah. Am I pronouncing that right? By the way, I don't know. Bokerah?
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 Broccoli.
I hope I am. And Bokerah Brumley, the editor of the Saturn Anthology being published by Tuscany Bay, correct?
Link in the description.
Tuscany Bay Press. So, Bokerah, do you have any words of welcome you would like to say? And Ben, tell me when you could be heard.
I can be heard now. For some reason, it wouldn't pick up any of my microphones.
I see. Why do I not have an alert for this YouTube video coming up? I should.
There is should.
Yes, okay, it did go through. I just didn't get an alert on my phone, but it's up.
Okay, good.
That's weird.
It's the eternal struggle. But, it's alright. Alright. Maybe she is also caught in the blizzard. Getting real day after tomorrow in here. People just walking out into the street and turning into ice sculptures in like 5 seconds. Do you remember that movie? That was a fantastic movie.
Which movie? One more time?
Day After Tomorrow.
Oh, you liked that movie.
I loved that movie. I loved it. It was fantastic.
That movie was terrible.
It was amazing. What's wrong with you? So, looks like it was not. Okay, so it looks like something happened to Bokerah's audio. You know what? Something I've never really understood. Everyone's like, you can't have dead air, but it's like, as long as the dead air's under about 5 seconds, no one actually cares. Wait, I heard myself. That's good. It's a start.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Now?
Yep.
Maybe?
Good.
I think this is the best start we've ever had to a stream, guys.
It is. It's top 10 easy.
Can you hear me now? It's freezing. I'm out in the wilds of Texas. No. Anyway. Yes, no, I've been responding back and forth. But completely dead silence, I guess, on the other end. So, yes, it's Bokerah. Bokerah. You catch that?
Yep. Bokerah.
Okay. All right. Yes, that's me.
It's you.
So I'll just start with hello. And everything's going to go wrong because it's just that cold.
Yeah, it's fair.
Just blame the weather.
Definitely. It's too cold.
One of my favorite songs is that Sweater Weather show. Sweater Weather. I think not Arms of the Sweater, but something. I can't sing anymore or we'll get copyright struck. Probably. Total War Warhammer. Yes, that's right, Megabuster Shepardin. Welcome. He agrees with me. He says The Day After Tomorrow is underrated. Probably the best.
Day After Tomorrow was dumb.
I'm pinning that message. Alright.
Look, I'm going to be honest. All modern disaster movies are bad, and I would go as far as to say that all of them are bad but the Poseidon Adventure. Literally it.
Anyway, Bokerah, now that you're surrounded by bad takes, how are you doing today? How's that weather?
Yeah. It's 5 degrees in West Texas and very cold, and we have lambs and puppies and goat kids that we're trying to keep warm. So it's been exciting.
That does sound exciting. Also adorable. That's
They're
what.
a lot of fun. They're not made for 5 degrees though. So
That's fair. Can't blame them. Cannot blame them. So we have you on today to discuss the Saturn Anthology, published by the
yes,
Tuscany Bay, as Anthony has said. Uh,
yes.
give us the good word about it.
Well, I'm really excited. It's the first time that it's not the first time. Like the very first anthology I ever did was a chicken anthology, which probably is odd, but I have a
The
lot
chicken one.
of
I
the
remember
chicken
that.
one. That was my first one on my own. So I was excited to put Saturn together and go through the submissions. I had 50 or 60 submissions. It was a lot to go through. So I say 50 or 60. It might have been more than that by the time it was all said and done. Um,
Yep.
so I went. So there's a lot of different. There's a lot of different stuff in this, which outside of the fact, when I was writing the foreword, I was trying to figure out how to link them all, and there's no theme that I could come up with other than I liked them, which seems really subjective. But that's, I think, the job. What winds up happening when you edit anything, when you put anything together, it's ridiculously subjective. And it shouldn't be, and you try really hard not to make it be, but it winds up being just because of the nature of the job. So, there's, I think, did we wind up with 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8,
Wait, I was in this. I need to pull up my copy.
14, 15, 16, 17,
I was in this. I should know this.
18, 19. There was 19. So there's 19 stories by 20 authors. So we have one story that was actually written by a husband and wife. So 20 authors, 19 stories.
So I'm going to
18
address
stories
the
in one poem.
I'm going to address the elephant in the room right now with the Saturn Anthology, which is that I was the original editor. I did not do the job, and I was correctly dropped because I was dragging my feet on it. So I hold no ill will towards being dropped. In fact, they gave me a longer chance than I probably deserved at the time. Uh, I did have, after I was dropped, I sent in to Richard Palinelli, who's Tuscany Bay guy, right? I sent him the list of authors that I had and stories that I had picked for the book. I did have a list at the time available. You were one of them, I believe, to my recollection. In fact, not all, but most of the original authors that I picked made it in.
Yes, most of them did.
Not every single one, but most of them did. And I did have a list that was prepared. So I'm getting that out of the way now. Say, yes, I was dropped from it. I hold no ill will towards being dropped. If anything, they waited longer than they probably should have, waiting for me to do something that I didn't do. So I am glad that most of the authors, however, that I had originally wanted in it made it in. That was nice to see. There were a couple of exceptions. Let me pull up the author list myself, actually, and see what I can remember off the top of my head, because finding my own list of authors in my email somewhere is going to take way too long.
I enjoyed writing Paradox Jones. I found it incredibly funny. Just by
Paradox Jones, I thought was hilarious, so. But I was honestly only worried that nobody else that it would be too niche. Like, it seems like the sort of story that you either get it and think it's absolutely hilarious, which I did, or you don't. And you just, like, you don't understand what you're reading, and there's nothing to like about it at all. But I
Yeah.
thought it was hysterical.
I think that's
So
valid. I think that's valid. I think it's a very love-or-hate story. I enjoyed it. I thought, meeting yourself like that was just be like incredible. It struck me as funny, but I really like time travel stuff. So, anyway, yeah, but I agree. I think it's going to be one of those that people either really, really like or get confused with, and which will make them not like it as much, probably.
yeah, there were a couple of people I think who were also reading it over, and their response to it, I remember at the time, was just like confusion.
David Halquist liked it.
There you go. I mean, the idea here is hopefully more people will have liked it than disliked it. Uh,
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like
so
Well, they've got to
that's the
they have
gamble.
to expect something like that. I mean, it's Saturn and it's time agent endings, and the original premise was that it was going to be time travel, so to expect something like that.
so for the people who are clearly confused, all three of them. Paradox Jones' story starts off with a
Well, one
guy.
is me, so two.
Yeah, that's fair. Uh, no. I was making a joke about our viewership, as I always do.
Yes, I know. One of those three viewers is me. So
Why do you
two.
keep ruining things for me, Anthony? All right. So, Paradox Jones. It starts off with him burying a body in this backyard of his that has multiple other bodies, as implied. And then he goes by, he looks down, and he discovers that in the place that he intended to bury a body, there was already a body there, meaning that time travel shenanigans have begun. So he rips off the mask and discovers he's looking into his own face, and the paradoxes just start cascading from there. And so it doesn't sound funny on like the basic idea of it, but I assure you, it's written in a most hilarious fashion.
So the basic premise is really just the premise of Murder in Metachronopolis. But the stories are absolutely not. For those who don't know, that's the John C. Wright story, Murder in Metachronopolis, which is, in my opinion, his best story in City Beyond Time. But the two stories are wildly different, and I would almost classify Paradox Jones as a parody of Murder in Metachronopolis, almost. Even though the stories themselves, like, to be clear, they're very, very different. But you take the basic idea of a detective is essentially trying to solve his own murder, but you spin it out in John does it in a way where it's an actual mystery with a clever ending and whatever, and Paradox Jones just says, how confusing can I make this while still technically having it make sense? And they're
Yeah,
like,
I think that's a good summation.
they're not really similar stories, to be clear. Like, I'm not saying that, if you like Murder in Metachronopolis, that does not mean that you will like Paradox Jones.
Quite the opposite, potentially.
But
no, and the way I took Paradox Jones was like, this is like what would happen, like crap. This is what would happen if I tripped into a paradox. Like, this is just what?
insanity.
Like the whole time. So yeah, it's definitely, and it's written that way too. Like it's written, it's not, it's, yeah, it just is as confusing as it would be if your average person tripped into a paradox.
A time paradox.
Yeah.
And and it works. That's the thing. It shouldn't, but it does. Though, that's just me stroking my ego. We do have quite a few there. I did read Josh Young's. Josh Young did write Cinecrib and the Samurai.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember as well.
That was.
Yeah, he was
excellent
one.
story.
He was one that Anthony had on his list. So I liked that one quite well.
I'm glad you got the list because I sent it to Richard and I didn't know.
I
He never
did.
told me what he did. He thanked me for getting it after I sent it, but he never told me what you did with it.
So
So I'm glad you got it.
I got all the submissions. I don't know that I ever actually got your list of who was in and who wasn't out of what you had. I don't know
I
if I got
see.
that list, but I did have a general idea of who was in and who wasn't, because I started with those authors because they had been waiting the longest to get,
Right.
so I reached out to them and talked to them and kind of went from there. And I think I got most of the people that you had already.
You did. You got most.
So I didn't get everybody.
So, which is nice. Yeah, but you did get most, which is nice. And there are people who I don't recognize, which is also good, by the way. You know, so these are people who either didn't submit to me or I turned them down, but I don't think I turned them down because I don't recognize, I don't remember, like, I do recognize the names because they're in our circle, most of them.
Right.
But I don't recognize, I don't remember them sending me anything. So that's good that you have more and different people. And Josh Young, however, was one of the ones I accepted. That's because Josh Young is actually like he's on that list of authors who I really, really wish would write more, because he has like just a few short stories out, but all of them are fantastic. Like the best part, one of the best things about every anthology or magazine or whatever that they're in. But he doesn't have anything long form yet, which is a shame.
Right.
I wish he'd write more.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's also in my chicken anthology too, for that same reason, because I like his writing. The clarity of his writing is good. So yeah, Joshua M. Young. Yeah, he's in there.
I'm looking at it. The ones I know that I accepted, Ben, Josh, Richard. Believe it or not, as I mentioned to Richard when I gave him the list, like after he dropped me, I said, "Believe it or not, your name's actually on the list because I genuinely would have accepted your story." I said so. I said, now you know that I actually would have, even though I'm not. I have no skin in the game anymore. I said, so your story actually would be on the list, so I'm glad he made it in. James Piles, who I've known for a while, like from various things. He had a very good story.
I loved his story. I was surprised. I was surprised by it. So I really enjoyed that. So we kind of moved some things around at the beginning, but it was a great story. So
James's story was about a Jewish person who meets the Apostle Paul, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If I'm going off of memory, and James is a Jewish Christian who writes from a very Jewish perspective. I don't know if he would classify himself as a messianic Jew specifically, but he believes that Jesus is the Messiah, type Christian. So his stories are always from that very unique perspective, which makes him very interesting to read, I think. And just generally, James is a good writer. I've been following him, like, literally I've been following James since he started his fiction career, because James actually, he wrote a review for God Robot years and years ago, and which is still on Amazon by James. And then he decided he wrote a story that was like his own take on the concept, which was essentially about like a robot that learned the Torah and kind of converted slowly to Christianity, or if not Christianity, like a Judaism qua Christianity type thing that way. It was a very good story. And he wrote it after he wrote a review of God Robot, and I've been following James's blog where he writes short fiction very regularly. I think he was a non-fiction writer originally, like he wrote technical journals or something.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And he just started writing short fiction right around that time. That's when he wrote the review of God Robot, and he's been writing very regularly, and he's quite good. So this was about up to the standard that I thought he'd have. He's one of those people though who was kind of a surprise because he really wasn't like a well-known or experienced author, but everything he writes tends to be quality.
Yeah, it was very good. And I thought it complemented Josh's story very well too. Josh
It
Young's
did.
story. And I was very pleased to read those, and I loved Saving the Apostle, and I think it was one of the first yeses I sent out. And then I was like, how do I build a Saturn? Like, all the stories can't be like this, so how do I build an anthology around that? Because it's exceptionally unique in that it is written from the Jewish perspective, at least with the Apostle Paul and the destruction of the temple. Anyway, it was really great.
Yes.
And
so with James too, I always find James interesting because he's one of those people where I actually don't always necessarily agree with everything he writes about Christianity and Judaism, including that story, by the way. Like, I'm not even 100. I would need to think about it before I said yes, I would accept the conclusion that he comes to. Maybe, maybe not. But he comes at it from a perspective where I have to take him seriously because I know he's clearly put serious thought into it, and he's, he really cares about the subject, and he's not just shooting off the cuff. Like, even that story specifically. Now, like you, I accepted it. I thought it was great, but I'm not even 100% sure I would necessarily agree with the conclusions that he comes to, and I'm being intentionally coy too because I don't want to spoil the story for people. But
no, I agree with you.
I don't know
like,
if I would. Maybe
I don't know, but the story itself was
I
so
would.
great.
Yeah, but it was very well done, and it was written with a lot of care and a lot of attention and compassion. So I couldn't just ignore it. Josh is in a similar vein, except Josh is, like me, a Catholic. So he is a Protestant convert to Catholicism. So his stories come from that perspective. Josh, he wrote a story for God Robot called Felix Culpa, and God Robot had, I think some pretty heavy hitters in it. It had a John C. Wright story. It had a Vox Day story. It had E.J. Shumax was popular, I know. It had El Jaji Lamplighter. And Josh's was actually my favorite of all of our stories. So I already had, like, and I, of course, with God Robot, I invited the authors onto it. I didn't have a submission process. I was literally reading stories in the Sci-Fi Journal and indie magazines and just cold emailing authors that I liked and asking them. And Josh was one of the ones I asked because he wrote a story about a robot that kind of finds God called Domo. And I read that story, which is very good, and I think caused him to be picked up by Castalia House, where he unfortunately never finished his novel. Josh, if you ever do hear this, I'm trying to guilt you. I want you to finish that novel. But
hey, Bradford Walker. Sorry, I was just reading one of our regulars.
No, you're fine. I'm slightly rambling, but the point I'm making is that I followed Josh for a while, and I've been very highly impressed with him from the very first thing I've read by him, and nothing that I've read by him, it's all been variations between good and great in terms of the work that Josh puts out. His novel was supposed to be titled Do Buddhas Dream of Enlightened Sheep? And unfortunately, he's never finished it. Josh, if you hear this, finish it. I will buy it. You have a customer. I will pay you money to read your book. Let me see. Yeah, I'm looking at the other authors on here and recognize Arlen Andrews, I believe, was one of the people that I had. I think he was. I could be wrong. But I think he was one of them. G. Scott Huggins, I think I accepted him initially, but the Fabians and A.M. Freeman I definitely did. Hers was very nice story. So the Fabians I did not though, definitely, because I don't recall. You mentioned they're the married couple. I'm guessing.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah.
they were.
So them I did not. Them I don't think I ever got anything from them. So that's interesting. What is their story about?
Just a second, guys.
So
Anthony, are we still
it
streaming?
is.
Let me see. If I hit play, I paused the video on my phone.
Yes, I think we're still going. Okay. Sorry about that. I just had to make sure.
Yeah, I think we are.
Also, we are faint. Why are we always faint?
The video is yeah, okay, it's working.
Alright. We're good. Keep on going. Sorry to disrupt your flow.
Yeah, Fabians. What was their story about?
So let me see if I can. Their story. So Karina, she often she has a Star Trek like world that she writes in often, and this is a story kind of in that same vein, and it was a great. I really enjoyed it because it's basically a hero having the opportunity to be a hero, and he goes ahead and is a hero, so I really enjoyed that, and they wrote it together, which I thought was really cute. So let me see if I can. Yeah, so
It's pretty cool that they co-wrote it.
yeah, so it is Star Trek like, but in that same, because it's sci-fi and it's Star Trek like, so it's not a lot of there's not a lot of description, and it's a very succinct story, but it is pretty great. So the guy is let me see. Yeah, they're mining in the rings. So anyway, of course, things go wrong and requires a sacrifice to save everybody, and it's just great. I don't want to. It's really hard to walk that line between talking about what a story is about and giving away all the good stuff.
Yep.
So I don't want to give it away, but it's really definitely struck me as like if you were to, it's shorter naturally than an episode, but it was very much struck me as like like an old Star Trek episode, like one of those, here's the problem, let's fix the problem, and it had a satisfying ending, and there was feelings for those that like feelings, and it was good. I liked it. So they were, yeah. So one note about the story: Rob wrote the outline of the story while serving at El Dorado Missile Warning Station, and it's been hanging around for 3 decades. They've just had it on their hard drive because they've been married a long time, and they just have had it. So I'm happy that it's in the Saturn Anthology. So
That is pretty cool. When you see
yeah,
those sort of
I thought so.
when those truck stories find a home, it's always a nice happy ending.
Yeah, for sure. So let me see.
So
Oh.
I'll give you the inside baseball of why I ended up not being able to finish the anthology. Basically, at the time, I got way too ambitious with it. If I had just decided to make it a regular anthology of stories, I probably would have been I probably would have been done by around the time that you were given control of it. But because I'm stupid and and don't know what I'm doing, I did not want to just do that. I wanted to write like a frame story around it, but the ideas I was coming up with for the frame story and the writing for it was going way, way too slowly. So that is why eventually I was dropped from it. Now, uh, I know that the way the Planetary Anthology series worked. Ben writes Chaos Invasion. Gah.
Well, all my armies are like 10 turns away. So it's actually just really bad for me. Because
Nice.
they're gonna just wreck my northern cities, and there's like 8 of them, and I don't have any buffer states. Oh no, there's more than 8. Oh no,
It's not
there's
good.
13 of them. Right next to a very tender underbelly, along with a bunch of other like Norscan tribes that just come out of the sea ice. Anyway, um, I stream games to make it entertaining for the guys. Now I wanna make this clear because I always got to rib Anthony on this. I had just gone through several kinds of hell, and then in about like 2 or 3 weeks or so, I basically churned out the soul. Uh, I actually it took longer to get my edits back than the amount of time I worked on it. So I just wanted to let people know what the standards are.
Hmm. Ben is correct. I am very, very unhappy with myself over Saturn, but I am glad that you were able to create a good anthology out of it. And I'm glad that you were able to find a home for many of the stories that I had found too. That's also nice.
I don't think I would have been able to pull off a frame story. That probably would not have been a thing.
So I
I
had
could have
done it
done.
before twice. I done it with God Robot, a very simplistic one, and that was actually like the biggest criticism of God Robot. So for my second anthology, which was Tales of the Once and Future King, I basically have like a novella running alongside the stories in the anthology, trying to connect them and interweave everything. Uh, Saturn, the idea that that I had with Saturn was it was going to be somewhere in between those two because I couldn't do something on the level of Tales of the Once and Future King again, which was a ton of work.
Right.
Uh, but God, I didn't want to do it quite as simplistic as God Robot either, even though God Robot was written like intentionally to be in the vein of those older, 60s era anthologies, specifically the original I Robot anthology by Asimov, which had a very, basic-ish frame story around it, but whatever. Uh, so the Saturn Anthology was going to be somewhere in between that, and the idea that I had at the time, and I had actually asked, I had gone as far. So this is the inside baseball. I had gone as far as to ask John C. Wright for permission to set it in Metachronopolis, and it was going to be about the god Saturn showing up, and he was going to like end time, and my character was going, and the character was going to meet him, and they were gonna like trade, sort of like a contest. He would need to basically talk Saturn into not ending time and the human race. And I did not plot the whole thing in detail, but that was like the basic gist of it. And I even wrote like the very beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just walled right there. I totally walled at that point. So the I ultimately, yes, I couldn't get it done. I had to be dropped. I am quite disappointed in myself over the Saturn Anthology, but it's a learning experience.
Yeah, definitely. There was such a big variety of stories though. It would have been difficult to get to get basically a novella. I mean, it would have had to have been novellas, even
So
with just the ones that you
yeah,
had picked. It would have had to have been, yeah, it
yeah,
would have
and I'm
been
pretty sure I
difficult.
had less than you had. So, not a lot less, but I had
Probably.
less. Mega Buster Shepherd says, that's why you outline everything, Anthony. Everything. Yes! You are correct.
Outline nothing.
Okay, so Tales of the Once and Future King was doable for a few reasons. The main one is that those were the novella portion of it. That surrounded the stories were a world and characters that
Right.
I had created from scratch, and I had
Right.
them in my head for years when I wrote it. So the Saturn Anthology series was something entirely new, set in a world that was even technically created by John C. Wright,
Right.
and it was just something that I really shouldn't have done, and I left people because I left so many people hanging. And I'm like, yeah, Richard doesn't like me anymore. Oh well.
He is just happy to have the series done. The whole series.
Absolutely.
But Mega Buster Shepherd is right. Never trust the muse. But there you go, guys. There's the inside baseball. I will say this. That idea itself is cool enough that one day I may use it on my own project. But like that won't be for a very long time, and or it will be adapted for a Pinkerton's ghost story.
Which I will
But
stand
even
over him and guarantee its inclusion.
you laugh here, but Ben will.
I do. I like to describe my management style as chaotic evil management. It's going to be a hot new book. Emotionally abuse people until they produce. That's the byline.
So I will say this: Ben has been, and I say this quite legitimately, and with all seriousness, Ben has been easily the best thing to happen to my writing career. Uh, because
It's just the Stockholm
Ben
syndrome.
makes sure that, yeah, right. No, but in all seriousness, Ben, when Ben asked me to do Pinkerton's Ghosts, at the time I was starting a new job that I'm still working, and that's the job that I don't talk about, and I still won't. But I was starting a new job, so I told Ben, I am really not sure if you want to ask me to do this, and Ben is just like, no, come on, you'll have time. Give it a shot, see, and if you can't do it, tell me. So, like 5 stories in, I've been getting them in on time, and I'm like, okay, this is going well. And once again, we'll go to Inside Baseball with Rewcastle Manor Mystery. I hit a wall writing it. It was actually all plotted out, and I knew exactly where it would go, and the plot didn't even really change. Like, it was one of those things where I was going through various personal issues at the time, and as I was writing it, I would write, like, a paragraph, and then I would pause, and I would stare at the screen, and I would metaphorically slam my head into the ground. Yeah, as into the keyboard, as I'm like, now what do I write? And Ben basically uh, kept tabs on me for like the final 3 days or so of this until I finished the story. And the story did end up. It was late for the early subscribers on Subscribestar, but the story was not late on the YouTube channel. So it was it was a day late for the early subscribers, but it made it to the Friday Pinkerton's release date on time. So after that happened, I was I told Ben, I was worried this would be a thing. Maybe I'll just do season 1, and Ben was like, "All right, so I'm not going to make you do it or anything." He's like, "But I would rather you stay." So I thought about it and I said, "I'll tell you what, Ben, I will stay, but until I become such a problem that you ask me to leave." To leave. The ball is now in your court.
Joke's on you. I'm
So
emotionally manipulative enough to make sure you produce. You're never escaping me. But Bokerah,
You are
Bokerah.
too.
I
I
know.
know. I'm sorry. I've hijacked.
You have. Don't worry
Please
about it.
talk to Bokerah.
Uh,
I
Bokerah.
love
Hello.
your reaction to that. You actually, yes, you have.
uh, so Bokerah, why don't you give us
Yeah.
step by step with the stories that are in Saturn Anthology?
Okay, hang on 1 second. I was actually taking the opportunity to make bottles for small baby things. Let me
It's fair.
grab.
Have you guys heard about that
Yeah,
iron filling thing in the baby food? That was pretty crazy. Like whole giant amounts of baby food just got like those little bottle things of baby food got recalled for iron
Oh, you mean
shavings.
formula?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
that was.
Okay, so I have the list now. So the very first, it's not really a story. The very first poem in it, what is Father of the Gods by Vonnie Winslow, Chris, I think. I think that's how you pronounce it. And Vonnie, if it's not, I'm sorry. But I really liked her take on. It's just a very scientific look, I guess, at Saturn and how the satellites and things that we've lobbed at it, not satellites, but the things that we've lobbed at it to look at it. So that opens the anthology, and she's actually had a pretty good string of acceptances, and she's got a bunch of stuff out that I'm looking forward to slowly starting to read as I'm able to pick stuff up. So, and I think this might be her first. I don't know if it's her first story in the anthology. I have to look and see if she's been in the anthologies before. Getting distracted now. I'm curious to see if she's
No, that's perfectly fair. I'm not going to complain.
in the
That would be
anthologies
hypocritical.
at all. No, I don't know that she is. This might be her first time. She's been in a lot of anthologies. No, she was in Neptune. So she was in Neptune. I think that might be. Yeah, I think that might be the only other one that she's been in of the of Tuscany Bay's planetary anthology series. But so she opens the collection, and I did not do. And if you pick up the anthology, I did not do a frame story. I did not have that kind of
Moxie.
I did not have that kind of bandwidth to manage a frame story for the stories that were in the anthology. So,
As it turns out, neither did I.
so, and then I've got Lords of Titan by G. Scott Huggins, which I was surprised by. Not. It's very. I think one of the things. I think when I accepted his story, I sent an email and said I really liked this take on Squiddy love, basically, because it was basically a love story, but not. So it was pretty awesome. So that's the Lords of Titans, and I mean the description is an old man copies his consciousness into a young alien clone body, but it's not just a humanoid clone body, so that's kind of fun. And decides to live on Titan, so that was fun. And Horns of a Paradox by Julie Frost. That is actually a reprint, and it was a really, really fun story because a time traveling wizard gets pitched forward in time, and like meets a hillbilly living in the hills, and it was such a great. It was very humorous to see the formal way the wizard was speaking and the way the hillbilly spoke and the natural miscommunications that occurred just because of that. So that was a lot of fun. But I think at the same time we had also kind of we had been watching Onward, which is a Walt Disney release. I've got 5 kids, so we watch a lot of
Nice.
kids stuff. So anyway, it was a lot of fun because it's an adventure and it's a quest story essentially, and it was great. So it just tickled my fancy. So, and then of course after that we've got They Also Serve by Rob and Karina, and I didn't realize that it was a 30-year-old story when I accepted it, and she told me afterwards that it was a 30-year-old story, which just gives you all the feels. Because I'm an author too, and that's the best thing when you write something that nobody wants and nobody loves, and it just goes in a drawer and waits. And then we've got The Clockwork Copper and the Priestess of Mystery, which I think it's Ingeweirden. Do you know how to pronounce this? J.M. Ingeweirden?
I do not know how to pronounce that
do
name,
not
but
know.
I know
Okay.
exactly
Yeah,
what you're talking
no
about.
I think that's how. But it has to do with, it's a pretty interesting story, and how you were kind of talking about God Robot and Josh's story in that. And it kind of reminded me of this, that Viva 3 is basically a clockwork AI, essentially, and her coming, her understanding, she meets a woman that basically implies that she might have a soul, and it's really an interesting, it grapples with a lot bigger. It's not just an adventure story. It grapples with a lot of, the theme is much larger than that. So I really like that too. So, and then The Price to Pay by J.F. Posthumous. That was a bit, it was sort of like the princess has to marry a guy, but then basically hooks up with a demon and kills the guy. It was a great twist on a happily ever after kind of story. So it's probably giving away all the surprise ending, but I enjoyed it for that reason.
So, there was a debate on Twitter about spoilers, and the thing with spoilers is that it's a draw for the uninitiated, and it's fan service for the initiated. So everyone who knows what the Planetary Anthology series is like, ooh, this story sounds interesting, and loves it. But then everyone who doesn't know what it is like, ooh, they have the same reaction. Everyone has the same reaction. Oh, it's interesting. So don't ever worry about spoilers, as long as there's the twist ending that I hope isn't like a Disney twist ending where the good guy's evil.
No. I thought it was great because it wasn't a Disney twist ending.
Yeah.
So that was like, oh, I have to have that. That's fun. So, let's see. And then of course we talked about Paradox Joan and Saving the Apostle and Josh's story. And then I have a story, but that's my story.
You had the cat burglar story, didn't you?
I do. I have the cat burglar story, which is actually one of 3 stories. And I've got, it's, I think, the middle story of 3.
Yeah,
and
yours was one I did accept, though I believe at the time I asked for minor edits, but you made them and I accepted the edited version. So
yeah, it's the one with Eartha Kitt, with the cat burglar that's basically patterned after Eartha Kitt. So yeah, that was fun. And in those 3 stories, that that character shows up in 3 stories, and those 3 stories make a full arc. And that whole story actually, I think, I don't remember if it was silver or an honorable mention or what it was with the Writers of the Future. I can't remember. One or the other. I think it was honorable mention. They liked the arc. The whole. Sorry, making another bottle. Not for small children, for kids. So when I say kids, it's for Go Kids.
Oh, okay.
Not my children. My children are bigger than that.
They're basically the same. Eat everything, jump around, play dead, randomly, scream.
Yes, definitely the screaming. Go Kids are good at screaming. Okay, so, and then Doing My Job by Dana Bell, which I thought was a nice. It's a cat story, and the main character is a cat, and I enjoyed that difference in complement and contrast to the stories, the other stories in the anthology. And The Gardener of Saturn, which I think Anthony said he had
that was
accepted.
April's story.
I enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed it, especially from the point of view that how difficult it is to make plants grow in West Texas. Like, that just struck a chord. Trying to make, because hers was a lot about.
So April is a very polished writer. Her stories and everything that she writes always comes across to me as like somebody who really knows her craft and knows what she's doing. And which is a nice contrast, because with a lot of the pulp rev writers and superversive writers and people in this sphere, I think that we have ideas and are willing to do things, and we have like the structure of storytelling more down, but we don't have the technical polish.
Right.
But April does.
So, for Soul, I was able to convince her to write a poem like a week after she produced her first kid.
That's just mean, Ben.
It's a great poem.
It's a great poem.
The art is worth the suffering for it.
Having produced a small person before, I'm not sure I agree with you. Several of them.
Oh,
yeah.
An expert on the subject.
You're being mean, Ben.
Yes.
I can agree with that, but that seems to be in keeping with his MO.
Art at any cost, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So,
seems to be.
I just pulled up this meme on Twitter from the daily updates on Fall of the Roman Empire, and it's an elephant who's a crying face, and he goes, "No, Hannibal, you can't make us go over the Alps in winter. That'll kill us. What are you doing? No, Hannibal, no." It's great. I'm exaggerating for comedic effect, but it did happen, and it was fantastic.
Amazing.
It also kept her streak of every single planetary anthology going, which was excellent. I really didn't want her to miss out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think she's in. If April's not in all of them, she is in most of them. Yeah.
All but.
So.
I don't know which one she's not in. If she's not in any of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think. I have to here. She doesn't have a. Do you know if she has a Amazon author page?
I have no idea. Let me see if I can find her.
I'm gonna look and see, because she is in.
I'm actually kind of excited. Bradford's talking about, while you're thinking about that, is talking about Bane. Uh, and, like, they've been kind of quiet recently, come to think
I
of
don't
it.
think she has an author page, by the way.
Yeah,
April?
it doesn't look like it.
I think
I do not trust Bane, so yeah.
I think the last big one they published was the third book in Larry's careers, quasi sci-fi fantasy thing, which I haven't read yet.
So, if I click on A.M. Friedman's name, these are the first things that come up. Method and apparatus for penetrating tissue, United States Patent 9795334 by Dominique M. Freeman. Jewish Pride, Rebuilding the People by Ben M. Freeman. And Under the Sun by Jason M. Freeman.
Yeah, I
That
don't think that's.
is not correct.
No.
So she goes
None of
under
those
the
people
the
are A.M.
cognomen
Freeman.
Yeah,
A
it's
dot
A.M.
M dot
Mm.
yeah.
A.M. Freeman.
She should get an author page.
She should. I was just thinking about that. Like,
She
oh,
she actually might be the most published of the three of us. Actually, come to think of it, at least in short
Well,
stories.
in terms of of short stories, she probably is. She has a lot, and she's been writing from when she was very young. I know, because I've known April for a few years now. She's been writing for a long time, which is why her writing comes across as so polished, despite her being, relatively young in author years, where many of the authors end up getting big when they're in their or starting to write in their 60s or whatever. So April has that polished down because she's had so much practice already.
it looks like she might not be in Neptune, but otherwise she's in everything else in that whole series. So, and if, from what I understand, her stories all connect in the whole series, in the anthology series. Yeah, I don't think I see her in Neptune, which doesn't mean she isn't. It just means she may not be. Sometimes Amazon is really dumb.
Yeah, they've been ruining their algorithm. Nick Cole's been talking about that a lot. That they've been ruining what's been made them special, and it's like it's kind of sad because it makes it really hard for us to start to grow more. But it's like, all right.
Yeah, that's true.
As long as you know, it is what it is.
Why do I have so many crypt ghouls?
Yes. So, anyway. Yes, so if you're listening and you've never read anything by A.M. Freeman, you should look them up. And I know you can start with the anthology series because I know she's in 10 of the 11 books for sure. Probably all 11. So
I don't know anything
should
about
look those up.
Neptune. Actually, I don't know who's
I
in
don't
that.
know either, actually. I don't know. Well, that's Jake's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were talking about him early on, right?
Yeah.
Being the
one that's kind of hard to reach for some reason. Because like I wrote a very pulpy story, and he's like, I don't want it in. And I'm like, why? And he never got back to me. Like I have concrete reasons for everyone I kicked out of Soul. I kind of hold that as a rule. Like if you're editing something, like at this what we're talking about now, like you should have a good idea as to why you kicked out this person that you don't like. Have that
So
person's in there.
I am gonna say this, Ben. I think that rule is only workable on the level that we work at, which is very small scale. So I was a slush pile reader for like 1 month. I was a volunteer slush pile reader for an anthology called Spark, and it was like an anthology series that was much bigger. They were big enough that they had to get voluntary slush pile readers just to move it just to like narrow the group down. And the only people who were getting any sort of responses, because they had to do it this way, like because of the number of submissions they got, were people who made it like to the final round of will we, won't we put this in our anthology. And I left them after a month for a few reasons. One was I was in college at the time. Another reason was that one of the stories in there, uh, I don't remember exactly what it was or what it was about, but I remember I specifically said about the story, this is the reason that I wanted to get into, like writing and editing in the first place. It is like the ideal story, and it did not make it in. So
Wow.
I just kind of left. So I just kind of left them. Uh, but the point is, what you're saying about you need to provide a reason for everyone, that's workable on the small scale level
That's right.
that we
Yeah,
work
I
at.
agree with that.
But there is a point, and honestly, it's a point that's not that much bigger than we're at right now. But there is a point where that will no longer be the case, where you just have
Well,
to
you
say,
just
nope,
can't.
you're out. Yeah.
Yeah, you just can't. You just don't have the time to be able to do that.
I mean, not an in-depth line by line reason. I'm just saying that like I don't like this story because it's not superversive or something like that. Like
No,
or
like
that
I'm saying that there is a point, like I said, and we're not there because we're still small scale. We only get what, like 30 to 50 submissions at the high end if we leave
yep.
a long submission period. But if I'm talking about people, they're probably getting close to like 300 submissions in a single submission period. These people are not getting a line.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I worked slush pile reading for a couple different places. One was Mash Stories, and it was ridiculously difficult because you would get hundreds of um, of submissions, and that was flash fiction, and you still had to provide one or two sentences about what was good or what was bad about it, and which was great, except it was incredibly time consuming. So much so that it's a lot to ask of volunteers. So
I dig it.
yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that too. Like there's a certain point, especially if you have any sort of platform, and you're getting the attention of whole groups. Like the Realm Makers group has thousands of people. Like I think we're at 2,000 people. I'm not sure. It may be just 16. It was 1,600 not too long ago. But at least half of those people are actively writing and submitting. And if somebody posts a submission inside there, I mean, you can add 100 or 200 submissions if it's a good-looking submissions call, and that just becomes crazy. Like that, getting through that number of submissions is hard enough without having to provide feedback. Now, I agree that feedback is the best way a writer can grow, or that feedback is some of the, it's like the diamonds that you hope for every no that you get, but it's not, it's just not feasible on big scale.
That's fair.
So, yeah, no, I agree with that.
And I haven't really worked. I've worked at, I guess, for Soul and a few other things, but I haven't worked super heavy, large sort of thing you're talking about right there.
Yeah,
So, with Tales of the Once and Future King, with God Robot, I didn't have open submissions. I emailed people. With Tales of the Once and Future King, Uh, I got a decent. There are, I believe, 20 stories in Tales, if to my recollection, something like that. I probably got like 30 to 40, maybe 30, probably closer to 30 submissions, maybe 40. Uh, I'm going entirely off of memory here, so I could end up looking it up and being like, "Oh wow, I got way more or way less than I realized." But that's what I think it was, and I think I gave everybody a personal response, though I did not promise them. Uh, I think I did give everybody. Ben, I am pretty sure that this was long before we knew each other at all, but I'm pretty sure you submitted something
To
that
what?
I rejected to Tails.
Maybe. Yes, it was a Lancelot rewrite where
Yeah,
he
and I
dueled.
responded, and I did give you like my reasoning. I'm pretty sure as to why.
Yeah, hold on.
This
I
was like
think.
before we knew each other.
Yeah, I think I might actually still have that email. I might actually still have that email. Holy cow!
It would be from King
Two
Arthur Anthology at AOL.com. I used an AOL email for the memes.
King Art. Hold on. Oh my goodness! It still remembers my email. Actually, yeah, no, I only have me sending out an email, but not a response. Huh. Let's check. Yeah, maybe it got deleted or something. All right. Yeah, no, it's I just like messing around with it. I still like that story and I want to work with it, but eh. The libertarians I know are rebranding as minarchists. Yeah, but you're still nerds. Well armed nerds, but still nerds. There we
Yes,
go.
libertarianism will never die because there's always more children being born.
And you can sell those children for a tidy profit under libertarianism.
Yeah, right? I mean, the point of my burn, which perhaps did not get through, was libertarians are children with childish philosophy.
I knew exactly what you were doing, Anthony. I was playing onto it.
I don't like libertarians. I don't hate. I should say this: the actual in-person libertarians who I know are generally good people. I do not appreciate libertarianism as a position
Everything's fine.
at all.
Absolutely. Look at all this.
when I got into when we had our whole libertarians, the party of Scrooge, that really got to me. That annoyed the heck out of me.
So, have we gone?
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Ooh, it's all fine, Ben. It's all fine. Uh, have we gone over all the stories?
No, not yet.
Do you need a second?
Do I? No.
Okay.
We are, I think, on the second half of them, but we haven't quite been through them all yet. So.
That's fair.
I also accepted. You will be uploaded by Carl K. Gallagher. I really enjoyed that.
Yes, I remember that.
Because it was second person, and that's not something you see regularly when you're reading through submissions, and I really liked.
See, that's funny because at the time with You Would Be Uploaded, I remember talking it over with my sister who was helping me with the editing, and we were very iffy on the second person. But we liked the story and accepted it, but we were super iffy on the second person.
Well, I liked it, but I liked it because it's just not. It will stand. It stands out because of that. So
That's true.
I
You
really like
probably
that.
made the right choice for that reason because you kind of lose what's interesting about it. It was a good story, though.
Yes, yes, it was definitely a good story. And I put it right next to, like, in the lineup of the anthology. I put it right next to April's story because it, to me, the contrast of April's story sounding young, like her character and the way her character spoke to me sounded young versus the way the main character of Carl's story, who did not sound young and sounded just like the different seasons of life, the different stages of life. I thought that was a great. It just, I don't know. It made me happy to see the two different points of view, and even knowing the authors themselves to a degree, just appreciating that different tone that you wind up with when you're at different stages in your life. So
Yeah.
and then let's see. Then Phantom's Lodge by Richard Paolanelli. Is that how you say it? Do you know? You said it differently, Anthony.
Oh, I have no idea. You could
Oh,
be
okay.
Paolanelli, maybe. I'm not sure.
Okay. But I think this is one that you had accepted.
It was, yes.
And he writes, he actually said that he was an air finder for a while and worked as one. So it kind of grew out of his own experience as an air finder. And it was a good story. A good ghost story. It was really a good ghost story, I thought. So I liked it for that reason.
I agree. It was it
God.
was a story that I accepted even after I was taken off the project. I put it on the list, so you know that I really meant it when I said I liked it.
Yeah, it was really good. It was long. I struggled with the length a little bit, and it's something that he and I talked about back and forth. Ultimately, we didn't really cut much, but it was one of those. It was a good mystery too. So a ghosty, paranormal mystery kind of thing. So, and then I've got the grand finale by P.A. Piot, who actually, interestingly enough, just signed with Chris Kennedy Publishing.
That's a good one.
And I think they're gonna do, yeah, they're gonna do some sci-fi. I don't know that he'll go into the Four Horsemen world yet. I don't know that that's something that's on his radar or not. But he's gonna launch a series with Chris Kennedy, and I'm pleased. He's a really good writer. Now, obviously, like all the writers, you know, some of his things are better than some of his other things. He's that'll be a good match, I think, with him and Chris Kennedy. So
Chris Kennedy also published David's series, Hard Moon series, that he tried to get through Superversive
oh,
before
that's
its
right.
collapse. And that actually did
Yes.
really well for itself.
Yeah. Good. The David Hallquist.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
I forgot about that.
watching his Venus sci-fi book go through its paces, and it is his next series is going to be even better. It's going to be fantastic. Chris Kennedy's just knocking out of the park.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Who's a Venus sci-fi book?
David Halquist. It's part of a series.
Okay.
From Jupiter's perspective in that universe.
Okay, understood.
And then also Mother of Dragons, which is by a new author, I think, to the anthology series, Carlton Herzog. Basically, Saturn patches And I thought it was so fun. It reminded me a lot of there's a Doctor Who episode where a planet hatches, and of course, I got all the it was exciting, just because of that. Not just because of that, but I really enjoyed his take on it. And I think that he's a relatively newer author too, I think. So I don't think he's young. I could be wrong, but he's new to fiction writing, I think. So. And then C.S. Johnson, who is not new to fiction writing. She writes Beyond Metamorphosis, which it's a short story that plays with the history of Gregor Samsa of Frank Kafka's The Metamorphosis. And in her story, his relationship with his family is explored through the eyes of his sister Greet. And Greet plays a violin. I really liked. It was definitely very poignant. It was a very poignant story. Not going to be something you read if you need a giggle, but it was really good. And I thought it played well to the winding down of Saturn and sort of the long side that ends Saturn with Lord of Age and Time by Denton Sally, and then Jewel from Beyond Time with Andrews. They were both, those two stories were written sort of from the perspective of an aging man. Lord of Age and Time is actually aging backwards and has sort of a twist ending, so it's not exactly like that, but anyway. But Arlen Andrews is at the end, and Jewel from Beyond Time was definitely like the long sigh at the end of a rather impressive anthology series, I thought. Like, here we are, we're at the end. It's also sad, but also a good ending too. So he writes about three friends, and them saying their final goodbyes, and then also experiencing what comes next, sort of together. So it was great. I think that's all of our stories.
Now, do you have a particular favorite?
Particular favorite? I definitely liked a lot of them for different reasons. I mean, it's always like asking, so what's your favorite wine? Well, I don't know. What situation are we going for? So I think
I find that answer funny because if you were to ask me about my other stories, I could immediately just tell you.
Yeah, but see, I can't because there's such a wide variety of feelings and stuff. And sometimes when I read, I would like to experience a poignant story. And if that's what I want, then I would probably read C.S. Johnson's story. If I wanted something that was not upbeat and super, super, I don't know, super peppy, I would definitely read C.S. Johnson's story. I'm a very moody reader. So that's definitely probably visible in the stories that are actually in the anthology, because some of them definitely have definite feelings and stuff, and then I don't. It's very difficult for me to have a favorite, for sure. I was pretty pleased. And it was one of the first yeses I sent out for Saving the Apostle. But that's because I was surprised that somebody wrote a story that somebody time traveling and meeting the Apostle Paul, and the surprise ending. I mean, the way he ended it, whether or not theologically I agree with it, made no difference to the pleasant surprise of it.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Anyway. Although Josh Young's story was pretty good too. I don't know.
I like that one a
I don't
lot.
know that I actually sat down and thought, well, which of these is my favorite? I am a big Star Trek fan, so I don't know. I don't know if I can put Robin Karina's story at the like my favorite, but it's probably pretty far up there too, just because of the whole hero
The
sacrifice.
So the one thing is that in the anthologies that I have, I made it like particular point. I didn't put any. See, I would co-edit it with my sister, and I made a point that nothing went into the anthology that was borderline. The rule we had when we were actually taking submissions with Tales of the Once and Future King was if one of us loved it, no matter what the other one thought, it was going in. If both of us thought it was pretty good, it would go in. If one of us hated it and one of us just thought it was fine, then no. That means that every story that made it into our anthology, uh, we both really liked all of them. And there were stories that did make. I won't say what, because I don't want to make the author feel bad. Not that they're listening to this anyway, unless, they're not one of our 4 listeners, since I'll be number 5. But, like, there were certain stories where one of us was a I love it and the other was a no, and that story made it in on the basis of the one person who loved it. Uh, so that did happen on like I 1 or 2 occasions, but it was like a point of pride where I think that all of the stories in Tales of the Once and Future King, I really really liked. There were no space fillers. I almost said
Right.
face filler. That would be fantastic. Uh, there were no space filler stories. There was nothing that was in there just because, we need one more story. Let's take this borderline case.
Right.
I would rather have a smaller anthology than, take a story that I wasn't really happy with. So I'm assuming that's the case with Saturn as well, from what you
Definitely.
described, because you've been able to talk, pretty at length about each story and what you enjoyed about all of them, which makes me think that you really must have appreciated everything that it has been submitted,
Yes,
or that's been
definitely.
accepted, I should say.
Yes, definitely. I think that which makes it all the more difficult when you ask, well, did you have any favorites? Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, anytime a story makes me go, oh, that's interesting, or oh, I didn't see that coming, that's definitely high up the list. But I think that probably at least 3 or 4 of these stories did that for me. Doing something that I hadn't expected. And for sure, G. Scott Huggins was one of them. Just the whole making you feel compassion for a squiddy, uh, uh, witty organism on Titan. That's kind of, which that's definitely not. I mean, that's an oversimplification of actually how he describes those. So please, Scott, if you ever listen to this, do not take offense that is how he describes your characters. But surprised at that, and I like romance, so it was definitely a high five. Yes, can't get too far away from octopus love. Like, that's awesome. No, which sounds really weird, but you'd have to read the story because it's not like that.
Don't worry,
Have you guys read? Have either of you read those yet? Have you read his yet?
His what?
His story in Saturn.
No.
Scott's. Mm-mm. No,
No,
you'll like it.
I don't think I have. Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something I really liked about all of them, and a favorite. I think probably. Yeah, I don't know that Saving Apostle. Like I said, I don't know if Saving Apostle is my favorite, but it's definitely one that I was very intentional about placing next to Josh Young's story, and making sure that it had contrasts around it so that it would that those two stories would shine next to each other. But I don't know. I don't have a favorite. I have no favorites. None. But I
The
loved them all.
diplomatic answer. Beautiful. All right. So, let's see here. Wow, we've actually been talking about this for quite some time, and about other things as well. So, were there any stories that you had to cut for space that you wished were in there, or any authors you kind of hoped would show up but didn't quite show up?
I had so John. I think it was. Let me see. There was one story that I talked to the author about. I think it was John M. Olson. He submitted, and I wanted his story, but I can't remember if he was one that had submitted to you, Anthony. And
Which author?
John M. Olson.
Describe the story, because maybe not. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to remember. There was one that I wanted that he actually was going to turn into a novel. I gotta figure. Let me see if I can find it. Talk among yourselves while I look.
It doesn't matter if I'm beating up the dwarves. I'm still hearing screaming from the Norsemen. Also, my fat bat is doing work. Go, fat bat, go. Like, my favorite unit for the vampires is now the Vargulf, which is this giant fat werewolf bat. It's huge. It's fantastic.
I've been very meh on video games lately. I haven't finished Immortals Phoenix Rising yet, and I haven't been that excited to get back into it, though I will one day. You know, I didn't dislike it or anything, but maybe I will. I really want I just want Game Freak to announce the Gen 4 remakes of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. They're dragging their feet on it. It's driving me nuts.
Normie.
I mean, yes. You literally can't get more normie. Pokemon is just about as somebody did point this out to me, and I'm only talking about this because we're in between waiting for Bokerah to come back. But like somebody pointed out, if I had made a bet 20 years ago, what is the current massive fad of the era that will be just as big 20 years from now? Admit it, you would not have guessed Pokemon. And that is true. I would not. But you know what? I'm happy about it.
I'm actually thinking this through. Because I'm not surprised that Digimon keeps coming in and out of the public consciousness, but I'm actually, like, Pokemon I dig. I would actually disagree with you. I would say that I would think Pokemon would survive this long.
You would have guessed that, huh? But would it survive is one thing. But Pokemon is literally as big now as it was in the 1990s, which is insane. If anything, it's bigger. Sword and Shield is like the best-selling Pokemon game, and it's not even like that great compared to their past games.
Fair.
So it's just the fact. Believe it or not, I'm gonna give credit where it's due and say Mother's Basement Jeff actually made a really good point with this. The reason that Pokemon remains in the public consciousness is that it has a very steady release schedule. You know, of like at least one game a year and one, main series game like every 2 years, as well as the, anime and whatever still coming out and out and out. And by having such a steady release schedule, it ensures that you never forget that like Pokemon is a thing. You know, like that actually was the problem with Attack on Titan. Season 4 of Attack on Titan, don't get me wrong, it's big. It's the most popular anime airing right now. However, I don't think that people are forgetting a little bit that Attack on Titan Once Upon a Time when season 1 came out was massive. Like it was way bigger than it is right now.
Hmm.
So the problem with that is that Attack on Titan had a gap between seasons, so enthusiasm kind of died down a little bit. But Pokemon never had that gap. It didn't have that gap in games. It didn't have that gap in seasons, and the games were never like the best games ever made, but they were always consistently quality, at least up to Generation 6, and Generation 7 is actually pretty great too. So, would you have thought that Pokemon was as big as it currently is what I'm saying.
So I do not have enough of a concept of early time period to say. All I knew is I saw the anime that was, on Channel 11 and all that good stuff, and I said, this has legs. This is gonna be around. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm gonna claim.
That's fair. So, yeah. So you gotta understand that I'm not really a gamer. Pokemon was one of the games, because again, as you've quite correctly pointed out, it is normie bait, and I am a normie. Uh, Pokemon was also very unique at the time because most games that were released on portable console were either like they were marketed as cheap portable games that you just played because they were portable, or if it was something really ambitious because it's not like nowadays, but it was they would try and port something to a portable console. Pokemon was a portable game that was marketed as a portable game, but was also presented just like it was a regular major release. Like, if that makes sense. So, if
Right.
you were buying a Pokemon game, you were buying a game that was made for the Game Boy, but with all of the fanfare of a game that was made for the PS2, which made it very unique in that respect. That's why it came out at like the end of the Game Boy's lifespan, but it completely blew up.
You doing okay, Bokerah?
Yes, I found it. I was
All right.
waiting, patiently waiting. I found it. It's John McFarland, actually. That I wanted his story, but he had already moved on and was going to release it in a John S. McFarland. Saturn devouring his son. But he was going to put it in his own collections. So that was the one I was like.
Hmm. I know I'm looking forward to the people I can drag in for Pinkerton's Ghosts, especially going into season 2. It's like I'm making a
So what
list.
is exactly Pinkerton's Ghost? I'm not familiar.
It
What that
is a horror
Oh
and
ho ho!
ho ho ho, my favorite subject. Uh, the Pinkerton's Ghost is a horror anthology project by a sort of entity I'm calling Superversive Radio, which I'm hoping to bring in other things as well in the future, but for now it's just Pinkerton's Ghosts. Because you gotta build a foundation first. And it's about Jack Morrow, Jim Donovan, and Sean Russo. Written by myself or Jack Morrow. Jim Donovan is written by Ken Dickinson, audiobooker extraordinaire. And Sean Russo is, of course, written by my own co-host Anthony Marchetta.
Woohoo!
I look forward to every script I receive. Uh, and it just details their horror adventures throughout um, the world and various things. A big theme is the decay of America. Oftentimes they interact with things that were once grand parts of America but are now
Mhm.
decayed into something perhaps a little less than what they should be. Throughout it all, they
For
fight
instance,
monsters, conspiracies, and all that good stuff. What's up?
so for instance, like what would be a thing that isn't as great as it once was? Which I know there are many, but what is it for instance?
uh, let's see here. So in the recent episode, uh, that really hit it out of the park and is strangely popular, surprisingly popular, is Rewcastle Manor, our 22nd episode, because we've been doing this every week for 23 weeks. Um, I'm ignoring T. James Glenn's episode for my own purposes. Uh, and
Because it was a guest episode. It
It was a
wasn't part
guest
of the
episode.
main story.
It's
Yeah,
pretty good.
it wasn't part of the main story.
Yep.
It was, yes. It was very
Uh,
good.
where Sean Russo goes into a decayed Bostonian neighborhood with a girl who has asked him for help and must uncover the mystery of Rewcastle Manor and the dastardly cultists who are inhabiting that once grand place. And it's sort of a look at the decay of uh, how do I want to put it, like decay of religious Freemasonry and that sort of thing. Not that
Okay,
Freemasonry was
so
ever good, but
I'll be blunt with you and say that as the
don't you
writer of the
dare, Anthony.
story,
Don't you
I'm
dare.
gonna do it.
Don't
I'm gonna
don't
say
do
it.
it. Anthony, no.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
do it.
All right.
Yeah. So, Rewcastle Manor Mystery was literally the Sherlock Holmes story, The Copper Beeches, down to the details, all the way up until the very ending. The only thing different about the story is the conclusion.
Anthony,
Everything
how
else
could you
is just altered from The Copper Beeches.
lying to me like
And I
this?
could say this, yeah, I could say this with real confidence because I literally, the idea behind the story was that I was going to take the Copper Beaches and do a supernatural take on it. Then Ben and I spent like 2 hours workshopping it. And the 2 hours that we spent on the story, we were going over various ways it could go. Cause I wasn't wedded to making it Copper Beaches. That was just the basis of it. But every time we came to a crux point in the plot over what should we do, we ended up using the direction that Conan Doyle took the story initially. So, for and the character names are from Copper Beaches. Rewcastle is the villain of Copper Beaches. Violet Hunter, who is the girl that my detective Sean Russo talks to, is the client in the Copper Beaches. I even think that the manservant, the name I use for the manservant, I'm pretty sure is the name of the manservant in the Conan Doyle story, which I can admit with no guilt because it's public domain. But
Right.
so the now Rewcastle Manor Mystery, to be clear, like once you read it and if you read it side by side with the Copper Beaches, like they are extremely different.
Yeah.
But the bones of the plot up until the finale are the same. A girl comes in, she has accepted a weird job or she has accepted a job under a vaguely weird person where there are alarm bells but nothing clear, and asks the detective to keep an eye on it. Then something happens and the detective needs to come in and intervene. And that is the story that I used in Rewcastle Manor. And the only thing that has changed is that the end of the Copper Beaches, which by the way is an excellent story, which is why I stole it. I mean, was inspired by it. Uh, the ending of the Copper Beaches is that like they had hired the governess to their household because they wanted to fool her lover who had been coming to the door that or they had a daughter who they kept locked up in the basement and they wanted to fool her lover who kept coming to the house that she was actually safe and happy. So they hired the governess and dressed her up like the daughter, you know. And I, of course, as I don't think it is a spoiler since we've been talking about cultists to say that we go in a decidedly more supernatural direction than Conan Doyle did in the Copper Beaches, and the ending involves more human sacrifice. So we are, after all, a horror anthology series, not a
Right.
detective series.
Right.
And
Naturally.
I also shorten the story and simplify it as much as I Conan Doyle writing mysteries, it was very important to him to set up all of these details and red herrings and things. And I was trying to keep, and you know, that wasn't as important to me. It was more about setting up an atmosphere, which was, and the ending of the story is actually like I specifically set it up so that it was sort of like the ending to the fall of the House of Usher. So with the and I won't go into any more detail on that because you should listen to the story. It's quite good.
The ending is
Yeah.
excellent.
So it's an audio
Yep.
thing. It's an audio anthology. That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't. I have seen it around, but not ever long enough to figure out exactly what it was.
It's it. Yeah.
I'll have to
I'm.
look it up.
Here, I'll send you a link. Don't you worry.
Yeah, you should send me a link.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to grow it out. I am always looking for guest authors. Open to you and stuff like that. But the focus is always on the horror and the events that are happening because it's focus on brand. One of the things I've been talking to people about is when because I've been involved in Twitter like writer groups for some reason. Uh,
Right.
it just kind of evolved that way, and it's like if it doesn't matter how good you can write if you don't know what it looks like, it's not going to be a good story, and that's such an important point. Like I'm the editor for this thing. I'm the chief editor. I'm the boss. I sit there like J. Jonah Jameson and I go, I want scripts from Anthony. Give me scripts from Anthony. And then Anthony looks at me. It's like, listen, dude, Spider-Man doesn't let just anyone take pictures of him. Uh,
Right.
I got mixed up in there somewhere, but it's all right. The metaphor holds.
What?
What?
Right. It
Uh,
has to be on brand.
on brand, absolutely. So it's like if you ever have a horror story kicking around in your head, featuring Americana and interesting stuff like that, hey, I'll take it. You can act it out, not act it out. I'll arrange it. Um, Ken Dickinson is our audio editor, and if you think I abuse Anthony, I abuse him, but he's happy in it. He's happy.
Luckily, Ken is a masochist, so there's no issue.
Right. Bradford Walker scribbling down notes thanks to sudden cross thought interaction. Got me a Monster Hunt story now. You better come to me, Bradford. Come to me. Come into my open arms. Onto my bosom. Rest your weary head.
And I come to you with open arms. No,
Oh,
I'm
jeez, that
sorry.
song
I'm
is
done now.
really old.
I'm done now. I'm sorry.
It's like a roller skating song. Did you ever go to the roller skating rinks when you were kids?
I
Because this is
did,
what
in
I
fact.
did, and
Yeah,
that was a song. That was one of those songs that would come on and would turn me
roller skating is
over.
fun. I
It was
don't know
funny.
why adults shouldn't do it. I don't
Well,
know why it's
adults don't
considered
feel
not
as
okay for
well.
adults.
Adults don't feel as well. They
I
shouldn't be roller
suppose that is
skating.
true, but roller skating is quite fun. I wish that adults were allowed to do it, but no, we can only go ice skating, and only if it's on like a date
Which
or
is also not safe.
something. And you can only do it while pair bonding. Curse you, societal norms.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I would be suspicious if I went to either one, roller skating rink, ice skating rink, and there was just some dude ice skating by
I know.
himself.
I agree. That's the point,
Be
though.
like, we are
That's
fixing to
the point.
be.
Amazing what a stray thought of a 19th century investigator fanning a Remington number 3 into a charging monster can do for you. For me. It's like, yes, Bradford. But, like, know it has a home here. We're real friendly. Don't you worry. Ah,
So you're gonna send me a link, yes? for
I
these
did,
things?
actually, through Discord.
Oh, good. I haven't liked yet.
It's,
Good.
yep, I just sent you the playlist. Mega Buster Shepard says, plenty of room for more guest writers, correct? Absolutely. Especially when we hit the second season of it after the season finale. And David's excellent Blood Money trilogy about the vampire in Shipton.
Yes.
Oh my goodness,
David.
yes.
It's
Halquist.
actually fantastic.
Like, that guy just knocks him out of the park every time.
So, all right. So, I am the Blood Money stories and Shipton and all of that. Blood Money was a character that was created by me years ago, and Shipton was a setting created by me years ago. So it is incredibly cool to see somebody else doing something with that character in that setting. And David absolutely killed it. So he showed me what he wrote like as soon as he finished it, and I read it at the time and gave him feedback. And they're like way better than I ever could have hoped. I'll put it that way. They're really, really terrific.
We even
And
have
so
a piece of
these-
fan fiction.
That's pretty cool.
We do. We have fan fiction.
It's not even sexy. It's amazing.
No random shipping of people that
I
shouldn't
wish
be
it was.
shipped.
Nothing. Not at that at all.
I don't know. Does that qualify as fan fiction?
It's something.
The Sean and Jack romance is still in the back burner right now. We need several seasons to build up to that.
It is. It's just going to be fantastic. It's like watching it would be like watching a possum interact with a Labrador Retriever. All panic on Jack's part.
Have you
It's
ever
gonna
seen
be
that in person?
Slow build.
I've seen a couple videos. I'm a big fan of possums, so I some
He really is.
I am. They're fantastic. They speak to me in a way I just speaks to me. But yeah.
Amazing.
The same feeling about
Same feeling about what?
that I don't have that same feeling about
Oh.
possums.
Aw.
My
I
dog
have to admit-
interacts with possums.
I have to admit, Ben converted me to the Church of Possum. I was pretty meh about possum, then Ben started posting possum memes, and he turned me into one of them. You know, them, possum people.
It's adorable. They're always socially anxious and stuff. It's fantastic.
See, it should probably speak to more writers if they're always socially anxious. I mean, like, one of those things. Like, I had to drink a glass of wine before I came on. That's why I was late. Yeah, that was pretty.
Yeah.
That's
All
Ben
right.
post a quality possum meme.
As you do.
Well, I think my time's up. Yeah.
No
Feeding
problem.
small people and small animals and large people and large animals. So I have no opossums though, unfortunately.
Aw.
Dogs, goats, and
What a
chickens,
shame.
and all the other things that opossums like to eat.
Oh, I know that farmers consider them vicious pests and stuff like that. I just get surprised every time because it's like you just kind of smack them a bit, you know, roughhouse them, and it's like, oh, oh no, they roll over. But look at them. Look
Yes,
how adorable this is.
we had a baby opossum that one of my dogs cornered on the porch, and my daughter was like that. It's like, oh, it's so cute. Like, I don't know if that falls in my realm of things I would call cute. I,
Of course
yeah.
it does.
I don't know. It's difficult. But we've also had porcupines and stuff on our porch too, thanks to the dogs.
It's the only
It's
thing.
nicer than a porcupine.
Oh, I bet so. A porcupine just doesn't care. It knows it's invulnerable.
Well, thanks, guys. I think I'm going to get after. Maybe even do some looking up of Pinkerton's ghosts here in a little bit.
Oh, it's great.
But thanks for having me on and for talking about Saturn. And I'm
Oh,
glad you were around, Anthony, too, because that was good too.
It was fun.
it was. It's pretty good. I'm always glad to promote this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure the authors appreciate it too. I know I do. So
It might lead to a sale or two, maybe.
maybe.
We'll have to postpone the
sure.
Valentine's Day stream for next week, I guess.
No Valentine's Day streams, Anthony. None.
What? But Ben,
You have to. You have to do a Valentine's Day stream on
It's the law.
Labradors and you just said opossums.
and
Labradors and
possums.
opossums. Yeah, Valentine's Day stream. That's what you can talk
I
about.
just figured we would talk about romantic comedy anime, but your idea's better.
Just memes, nonstop.
It is just memes. No.
Well, you guys have a good night. Thanks again.
Have a good one, and thank you for coming on. Bye. It won't let me in the chat. I'm just gonna